Okay? So, if this was scenario A, the current state, I'm going to call it the one we just did, scenario B. Now, scenario B, lead time, how long? Well, I don't know. There was some rigmarole there, and I had to walk, and it was a small talk. I don't know. At the most, 30 minutes. How about the value-added time? Well, did we change any of the value-added steps? Not really. It's kind of the point of lean manufacturing. We're going to have a bunch of smart engineers and scientists and whoever looking at those few seconds of value-added. But what we're really interested in as lean or process improvement practitioners, we're interested in all that huge amount of time between the lead time and the non-value-add time. In fact, in most businesses, you'll find that 95 to 99% of the time is non-value added. There's huge opportunities here. In fact, the hallmark of lean manufacturing was based on a quote from Henry Ford. Henry basically said, lead time is equal to cost. You reduce your lead time, you improve your responsiveness to your customers, you reduce the need for assets, and you reduce your costs. Okay? So we're going to focus on that 99 to 95% of the time in between there. Okay? Value added, we really didn't change anything. Probably still 10 minutes. So our ratio is now 33%. Now, is that perfection? No. Our goal here is to shoot for 100%. Now, we will never be there. At the end of my career, I will never get anyone to 100%. But it's a race without a finish line. Our benchmark is perfection. Okay? So we're shooting for perfection. So, have we improved here? Well, we've improved a lot. Is there room to go more? There's a lot of room to go more. There always will be. Never think you're done. All right. Now, this was kind of utopian. Okay? But I think there's some concepts here that, with a little massaging, we could implement. So I go to my doctor. I talked to Dr. Dave. I said, a lot of people are doing process improvement, Six Sigma, Lean, TOC in medical practice today, which is kind of a new phenomenon. And I've been doing this with manufacturers for a long time, but I want to talk to you about doing it in your practice. And like most owners and managers, he says, I'm all for improvement. And in my experience, they all say that initially until it affects them somehow or they have to make some kind of hard decision. So I explained to him the kind of utopian thing we did. I said, I understand we can't do all of that. But I said, I think there's some concepts there we could come 80% on, right? 80% of the benefit without a lot of effort. And I can see he's starting to really get squirmy. So there's this thing I often do. It's called a T chart. And we compare pros and cons or advantages and disadvantages of two different options. So I tell them, I want to take you from option A that we looked at earlier to option B. And let's talk about the advantages or the pros of doing that, or the disadvantages or the cons of doing that. Okay? And my nature is I just go right on the offensive, especially when we're dealing with management, ownership, people like that. And I say, look at Dr. Dave, which is going to have higher customer satisfaction? And he says, oh, geez, going from A to B will definitely make my customers happier. All right? So the customer satisfaction will go up, and that's a pro. And I said, if your customers are more satisfied, might you be able to charge a premium? Okay? And in most industries, you can do that. In medical practice, you can do that. It's a little harder with insurance and stuff. But in most businesses, you're going to be able to charge more for higher customer satisfaction. In fact, here in the U.S., this is really where we need to compete. There's this place called China, a lot of other low-cost manufacturers and service providers, and often we're not going to be able to provide the lowest absolute cost, but we want to provide the best total cost or the best value for our customers. And one of the greatest places we can compete on is customer satisfaction or customer service. Okay? And so the price, if you have the highest customer satisfaction, you can charge the highest price typically. So the price can be higher. Okay? Now I can see he's starting to come unglued. So I say, okay, what's the problem? He says, here's the problem. He says, in that old mass production medicine model, which by the way is the model that he's been running, it's based on kind of the spoke and hub thing like the airlines do, or the old airlines did. He says, we had two goals. We said we wanted to specialize, so all I did was medical stuff, looking at patients, and maximize resource utilization. We wanted to make sure if I worked 10 hours, I'd bill 10 hours. He says, in the scenario you gave me, you walked into the office and I wasn't billing. I wasn't looking at a patient. So my billable is going to go down, right? And I said, well, I'll give you that. That's a disadvantage. So billable might go down. Maybe before it was 10 hours, 10 billable. I might guess he would even bill out somehow 12 if he worked 10. That's just the cynic in me. But you know, maybe that goes down to 7-10. Works 10 hours, only bills out 7. He says, that's a huge problem, Dave. I said, okay, I'll give you that one. I said, but if you take your cost structure for your business and you break it down into this, and you can do this for any business, direct material, direct labor, and overhead. Everything else other than direct material and direct labor called overhead. I say, which is your biggest one, doctor? And he says, oh my God, the overhead is huge. In fact, here in the U.S., every business I ever worked with, except for one now, I did find one last year that this wasn't the case, but of those categories, overhead almost universally is the largest. I said, okay, if we go from A to B, what is going to happen to your overhead? He said, oh my gosh, it's going to go down dramatically. What are we getting rid of? Well, we had the big reception room, that's gone. We had the $1 million computerized scheduling system, that's gone. We had all the busy workers, you know, trying to schedule people and coordinate all this stuff, that's gone. We had the CNN Doctor's Office channel, the chairs, the magazines, all that stuff's gone. Right? Now, you know, what might be happening during these 3 hours is he might be picking up some of his work. In Lean, we're going to ask people to wear more hats than just one. We're kind of getting rid of this specializing. We want people to be able to do a lot of different things. So he may or may not like that. He might find that's a refreshing change. So the overhead goes down. Okay? And you can probably come up with quite a few other advantages and disadvantages. This is a great chart, by the way, to use whenever you're making a business decision, and particularly if there's emotions involved, and some of it's subjective, it's not all things you can put numbers to. Make a nice big T-chart, facilitate a group, and say, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, and if you go through each option that way, pretty quickly you'll find one that everyone agrees is the best direction to go. Some medical practices here in the U.S. have done this, and what they've done is they've put the general practitioner, the specialist, and the pharmacist all in the same building. There's not one a block from my house, but there's one in each sizable community. You can arrive without an appointment. You may or may not see your most preferred doctor, but you'll see someone quickly. You get in and out, and typically not 30 minutes, but more like 40 or 45 minutes. And what we find is that their customer satisfaction is higher, their overhead's lower, and they make more money than the traditional mass production medical practices. Okay? Let's go through another option. If I was someone rich and famous, George Clooney or someone, and I said, man, I got an earache, right? My ear is killing me. What does he do? Well, I'm guessing he probably doesn't go to the doctor. He calls the doctor, and the doctor comes to him. So let's go through that value stream mapping process. So he calls the doctor says, what's wrong? Pre-screens him over phone. He says, I'll be over there in a little while. Doctor's working out of his house, right? He throws on his clothes because it wouldn't be professional to show up in his bathrobe. He stops off at the pharmacy, gets 6 or 8 different prescriptions that could possibly be samples, gets the portable sucker out machine. Goes to George's house, they do the small talk. The small talk's done, he sucks the bad stuff out. Gives them a sample prescription, says, I'll FedEx you the balance of the prescription this afternoon. My bill hits your credit card this afternoon. So let's call this scenario C. Okay? And what's George's customer satisfaction like? Very high. And what kind of premium is his doctor charging? An extreme premium. Okay? Now, in terms of billable, his doctor's probably not getting the same billable, even as the scenario B. it's probably going to go down to something like bill 5 out of working 10. Okay? How about the overhead, though? Right? This doctor doesn't have an office, doesn't have any of that stuff. He's got a car, right? And he's got malpractice insurance and his time. That's about it. Who do you think's making the most money here? I'm going to guarantee you that George Clooney's doctor in scenario C is making way more money than my doctor, and probably way more money than these centrally located facilities. So that's taking this another step up. Okay? That's lean medicine. This is value stream mapping. So let's do a review of what we did. You go through the current state process, how it works today, identify all the steps, identify what adds value for the customer, what doesn't. When you're done doing that, kind of forget about that, start with a clean sheet of paper and said, from the customer's perspective, I forget about practicality, cost, or anything, right? As long as it's technologically possible, how would I like it to work? And you map it out that way, and this will make people uncomfortable, but once you get them used to it, they'll have some fun with it, and they'll get some incredible ideas that at first you'll think, no possible way we could ever do that. But then as soon as you finish that, back off of reality a little bit and say this. Say, how can we get 80% of that benefit? Implement 80% of that concept with our current constraints. How can we get there quickly? And what you'll find is if you get people aggressively brainstorm around that, they will come up with a solution to get you at least 80% there with minimal cost and practical in the short term. Okay? So then what you do is you kind of take these and put them on a wall. Make them visual. Make them living and breathing. Here's the way it looks today. Here's the way we want it to look. And then what you're looking for is what we call Kaizen bursts. What are the major initiatives, sequential major initiatives, to get from the current to the future? And then assign teams to those initiatives and let them have at it. Now, this thing is living and breathing. No plan survives first brush with the enemy. Okay, so as soon as you do one of those Kaizen bursts, one of those bullets, you're going to learn more, it's not going to come out quite the way you expected, and things will change. That's the nature of the beast. So you revisit that future state and make some adjustments to it. So there's always a future state out there, there's always a current state. In fact, I like to have a couple future states. I like to document that pie in the sky one. That's kind of my long term, sometimes I call that 5 or 10 year. And then I like to have, okay, what are we going to look like 6, 9, 12 months from now that takes us towards that long term? What are the incremental steps to get there? And as soon as we get to there, we'll revisit that long term and update it. Okay? That's value stream mapping. I hope you enjoyed this and learned something from it. Again, I'm Dave Hallett from PullScheduling.com. Visit the website. We got lots of tools to support this. I'm also out there helping companies every day. So if you want some personal help, give me a call. Have a good day.